These philosophers, scientists and authors have said some pretty despicable things about women. Others have done some really messed up stuff to their wives. You can be the smartest, most intelligent, groundbreaking genius and still be a trash human. Here is a list of historical geniuses and nerds you never knew were misogynistic jerks. Albert Einstein wrote a list of rules for his wife, including her chores. Albert Einstein, remembered by many as a Nobel Prize-winning scientist, proves that just because you introduce the world to the theory of relativity, that doesn't mean you're exempt from being sexist. Back in 1914, Einstein and his first wife Mileva Maric had hit a rough patch in their marriage. Einstein thought he could remedy this with a strict list of rules. Einstein thought wrong. Maric left him. The list included rules such as, you will make sure that my clothes and laundry are kept in good order, you will not expect any intimacy from me, nor will you reproach me in any way, you will undertake not to belittle me in front of our children, either through words or behavior, and, you will stop talking to me if I request it. Aristotle thought women should be slaves. Aristotle was a renowned ancient Greek philosopher and scientist who taught Alexander the Great and wrote about a huge range of topics that included metaphysics, poetry and politics. You would think a philosopher would be fairly progressive and open-minded when it came to gender. Think again. Aristotle said things like, a proper wife should be as obedient as a slave, and, the female is a female by virtue of a certain lack of qualities, a natural defectiveness. Confucius thought one testicle was better than a whole woman. You know the old adage, do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself? Most people could agree that living by those words would be far from the worst thing in the world. Well, what if you knew that the same guy that came up with that phrase also said, 100 women are not worth a single testicle, and, it is the law of nature that women should be held under the dominance of man. All three of those quotes can be credited to Confucius, the famous Chinese politician, philosopher, and editor. Friedrich Nietzsche thought women who wanted to learn were messed up sexually. Most people are probably familiar with Friedrich Nietzsche as the God is dead guy. He seemed to be absolutely baffled by the thought of women learning anything and said this of any academically minded woman, when a woman has scholarly inclinations there is usually something wrong with her sexuality. Kurt Vonnegut thought you couldn't educate women. Acclaimed author Kurt Vonnegut appeared to have a very low opinion of women and their ability to learn. Vonnegut spoke on this topic and came out with, educating a beautiful woman is like pouring honey into a fine Swiss watch, everything stops. Before we get into the second half of this video, please remember to like, subscribe and click the notification bell to be the first to check out our latest videos. Martin Luther thought women were either wives or prostitutes. Martin Luther had his fingers in a lot of pies. The German professor of theology was also a composer, a priest, a monk, and a big deal in the world of Protestant reform. He was also sexist. Luther seemed to really buy into the virgin-whore dichotomy that has plagued women for literal centuries, saying, the word and work of God is quite clear, viz. that women were made to be either wives or prostitutes. Napoleon Bonaparte also thought women should be slaves. French military leader Napoleon Bonaparte may not have been as tiny as we popularly believe, but that doesn't change the fact that we still chalk up a ton of problems to his height-induced mania. Unfortunately, that doesn't quite explain why he said some troubling things about women. Napoleon said, nature intended women to be our slaves. They are our property. Norman Mailer thought sexual assault was okay. All the statements said by these notable historical figures have been awful across the board. But this one that came from the mouth of American playwright and political activist Norman Mailer is especially egregious and rather surprising considering he seemed to be politically woke for the decades he lived 1923 till 2007. Mailer said, a little bit of rape is good for a man's soul. Gautama Buddha said women were too dumb for Buddhism. Who would have thought that Gautama Buddha, the man whose teachings are what Buddhism is founded on, would have been so sexist? Turns out Buddha had some very backwards views on women, believing them to be stupid ingrates, incapable of understanding his teachings. Buddha said, "Women, with their two-fingered wisdom, have a difficult time understanding what I teach." He also said, "If it were not for women being admitted into our order, my teachings would have lasted 1,000 years, now they will not last 500. Which of these historical figures surprised you the most? And do you still think of them the same? We would like to hear your thoughts on the subject matter, so feel free to drop a comment below and don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos.